Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out to talk about your book, your life in writing, and overall, I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on today and allowing me to talk about the book. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you bet. So before we get into the book, I want to know how much has COVID affected your life at this point right now? I know we're out of the pandemic, so to speak. Has it influenced you writing this book and anything that you're doing right now?
Not really. I've been wanting to write a book for quite a few years. It just allowed me to start writing the book.
Okay. Okay.
So it was one of those things, well, we can't go anyplace, and what am I going to do?
Yeah,
So,
for
and
sure.
that's when I jumped in. I jumped in and started writing the first book. This is the second book now.
So have you always been a writer? What's your vocation been in your life?
I've been an engineer and an aircraft maintenance.
Okay. Okay. So
So,
where were you born and raised? Where did everything start?
well, it starts at a little town called Abington in Massachusetts, down on the southeastern portion of Mass, just a stone throw away from Cape Cod, more or less. I
Okay.
grew up there, and that's where all my stories take place.
Okay. So what did you want to be when you were a kid? Was writing ever on your radar?
Writing was on my radar in my early years. I tried my hand at writing, and I read it something to my dad, and he said, "Don't quit your school." So
So what was your favorite book growing up? Or what's been one of your favorite books?
when I got to tell you that I read more the just whatever they assigned me in school.
Right.
So if they said you had to read Tom Sawyer, I waited for the movie. So and then so on and so forth. But encyclopedias were the big thing. I remember reading a lot of those growing up. But as far as recreational reading, I can only remember going to the library and picking books that had airplanes in them, some kind of reading of that nature there itself. It was a fascination, aircrafts.
So
So
no, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you're good. I'm sorry.
Okay. Uh, Basically, I don't know what it was. As a child, I used to ride out once a year to the Naval Weymouth Air Station where the Blue Angels would come in.
Yeah.
And I, if they had an aircraft open, I was running through it. I was going into the flight deck, cargo compartment, wherever they let me go. And and just was fascinated by all the gadgets, the dials, and everything they had inside there. It really intrigued me, and that's basically it. So my reading was centered around that. Then at 16, I went to take flight lessons out in Marshfield, Massachusetts, and I started there. And in my book, I talk about one of the flight lessons where Pam, the girl I was dating at the time, actually came on a training lesson with me, okayed by the flight instructor. So, and we talk about that in the book as well. So, but from there, I wasn't really college material, so I went into the military back then. Uh, we had two choices, college or military. So I did that, and the Air Force decided I'd be a good mechanic somehow. I don't know how, but they did. So they sent me to school to learn how to work on aircrafts, and uh, and it just took from there. That's what I love to do. It was just a fascination to see all those things come together and how to make that thing fly. So it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad was born in Brooklyn, raised in Long Island, and he wanted out so bad he joined the Air Force to see the world and got stationed at Richards Gebaur here in Kansas City. Fell in love, and that's why we're here.
Dickie Goober. I know all about Dickie Goober. I spent some time in rescue in the Air Force, and
Okay.
that's where our headquarters was at the time at Richard
Okay.
Gebour. Yeah, our nickname Dickie Goober, but
Yeah. Yeah. He told me a story. He passed in '08, but I remember him telling me a story about them watching the lights change when the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening, and they thought it
uh,
was going to be go time. And that
yeah,
was chilling. That story was crazy.
I'll bet. Yeah, I can't imagine just sitting there waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, my world was, well, of course, a number of years after that. I was at the tail end of Vietnam, and I spent 18 months there. So,
Wow.
uh, yeah, I loved it. I hate to tell you, um, the excitement, the thrill, it was all part of life. And I'm writing another book on that, talking about my 18 months over there. But the books that are out now all are based on while I was over there trying to have a connection with that girl, so and
Wow.
letter writing and stuff like that. So it's good.
So let me ask you about that time in Vietnam. Was that with at that age, with everything that's going on, you guys just had to be flooded with adrenaline.
Yeah, it was a lot of adrenaline, especially when the mortars started coming in.
Yeah.
Uh, it's you know, went over there. I can remember getting off the plane, and the first thing that hit me was the sweltering heat and the stench.
Yeah.
Because there was a stench there. You ask any veteran that was there, they'll tell you, you'll never forget the smell.
Wow.
Yeah, and the heat. It was just terrible. Um, but there were no game plans um, to to follow. Nobody followed any plans except the United States. This is the plan we have. This is the plan we follow. But the other side doesn't have a plan to follow. They didn't follow that plan. So they did what they wanted to, and how whatever way they had to, they did.
Wow.
So it was different. But the funny things were they all vetted all these people that would come on the base, and I often wondered, how do you tell the difference between good and bad? Because you all dress the same,
Yeah.
you know. It's like, well, one comes up to me and said, "Well, you all dress the same too." Got a point. We're all in uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I often wondered, they come out on the flight line, they clean it up, and then they disappeared. It was like they just magically walked into a wall and they were gone, you know.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
but you could be sure that night you were going to have mortars lobbed in somewhere. They would try to, hit the flight line because if they could hit one of the airplanes, that was a win-win for them,
Yeah.
because you take out a cargo plane, he can't supply the rest of the troops out in the field with whatever they need. And that was our sole intent between supplying them with the food and ammunition and that. We also had to go in and pick up the wounded and bring them back. So every plane that we lost, then that was just a win-win on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
One less plane, one less supply group, things like that. Well, luckily for us, they were bad shots. So,
Yeah.
you
There you
know,
go.
um, we didn't lose. And the whole time I was there, I lost one airplane, and that was it. You know, but uh, other than that, it was just every day was the same thing, 6 days a week. You had one day off. Couldn't go anywhere, but you had one day off.
Yeah.
So sometimes I did take a flight from my base down to a place called Vung Tau. It was a large beach down there. It was an R&R for in country, what we called in country. So if you were somewhere in country and you wanted to go on a 5 day in country leave, you could go down to Vung Tau and spend the time down on the beach, and then you just go back to your unit from there. So
Gotcha. Interesting.
yeah, it was
Interesting.
interesting. It was
So,
it was a whole different life.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of vets, and there's all kinds of different stories. I mean, just a million different stories. So,
Yeah.
in Entangled Hearts, you've kind of touched on it a few times. It
Yep.
almost seems to me there's this modern phenomenon where people reconnect on Facebook. The reconnecting vibe is out there. So,
Yes.
talk to me a little bit about how this story came about and how you decided to make it into a book.
This story has been something that's been echoing in the back of my head for a long time. I always wanted to share. Now, I don't have a family that I can leave anything to, like my brothers and sisters have children. I have nieces and nephews. But I wanted to leave my own legacy. And Some of my legacies are in inventions for where I worked, but that doesn't help anybody that wants to say, well, what did Uncle Bobby do? Or, you know, well, we don't know. He left home at 18. Just that was the end we seen him. He
Yeah.
just kept staying away. Um, so that's where the book came from. I wanted to start with my high school days. And actually, in the first book, I started with sixth grade and uh, told that story of how I got into junior high. And then from that into high school and working, and then meeting that girl at the fountain at the store we were working at, trying to make a go at it with her, and breaking up and reconnecting and breaking up and reconnecting. And when I would talk to people, and they say, well, what was life, back then? I tell them how great it was, what we did as kids, drive-ins, roller skating, ice skating, things like that. And some of the newer generations always say, well, what about, video games? And I said, yeah, what about video games?
Yeah.
You know, I think the first one I remembered was Pong, I tell them, and that was on my dad's TV.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but so that I got into writing the book like that. So it's I started out writing a little bit about my experience in Vietnam and stuff like that, and then I carried it over to. I didn't realize what I was carrying it over to. It was actually the readers that told me what I was carrying it on to, about love, life, and longevity, and things that go bump in the night, more or less. That this is going to do. You break up to make up, so
Yeah.
type thing, and that's what I did. So it was supposed to be just one book and out. There it is. The book's out. Oh, great. If it sells, great. Well, it sells, and now everybody else wants to know about the girl. They want to hear that side of the story. So therefore, book two has come out.
Yeah.
And now that's where we're at this point, is now she's telling that side of the same romance, you
Okay.
know, her side of it,
Yeah.
and all from her. And, we get together at this little bakery in Abington, Massachusetts, and we sit down and we talk about it. And sometimes we would go out and look at the places that we went. And she would describe it to me. And as she was describing, I was taking all the notes to put into the book for her. And that's where we're at now. And with the reading of the book, from some of the reviews, it's going to lead into the final book of the series now. So we're going to get together next year in 25 and put the book to bed. So
This has to feel wonderful to just go in to try to leave a legacy, and now it's turning into a trilogy. It has to feel great.
it is. It really. I don't know how. I wasn't expecting anything like this. It just, it's like, wow, this is great. I love it because I've heard a lot of other people tell me this sounds like something they went through as well. And I never thought I would hear it, but they're mainly men coming back to me with, you know what? I went through the same thing. I had a girlfriend. We tried to do this. We had that. I was in Vietnam. I got my Dear John letter. I tried to go back. Things like. So I do hear quite a bit from the guys on my book. You
Yeah.
know, um, they too have a Entangled Hearts series as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So, who's been your hero? Who's been an inspiration for you in your life? Not only with everything that you've done in the military and with engineering in your career, but with writing. Who's been that person?
Um, I don't have a hero in writing. Um, I was always told, you can't write about yourself, and I said, why? I didn't understand why not. I talk about myself, that I talked about the family when I was young. People would joke about, you come from Boston, things like that. You had a hockey car somewhere, you know. So I went along with it, and I told them it's, it was a good life for me. So my writing just came because I wanted to I could see it visually inside my head, and I wanted to bring it down and put it on in words on paper, and it was like that. So um, I can't say I have any particular person out there that I emulate or for writing anything. It's just words coming out of me onto the paper
Yeah.
and making sure they understood um, how great this was, how great a love it was. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, could you ever see anything? Could you see this becoming a movie?
I do sections of it. I see it being a movie. I have a wonderful section in the first book about where we talk about where we both fell in love at the same time, right around this time of year, 1966, on a train that used to go around cranberry bogs where they put up colored lights along the bogs. And we went down there and we bought our ticket, and we sat on the train and I tell the story about what it was like sitting next to her, how she frosted the window and little pictures started to come up with her breath and the frost on the icing on the windows and stuff like that. And basically, that's where we say that that's where we both fell in love at that time. It
Yeah.
was on that train ride during that Christmas season in 1966.
Yeah.
We thought we were meant for each other.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
wonderful.
Yeah.
So, what has been kind of the motivation for you to do all of this work that you've done? You've had a great career. You're a writer now. You got a new career. What is it that gets you up every day and motivates you to etch the story and to continue doing what you do well?
Well, I appreciate you saying I do it well, but I just do because I love it.
Yeah.
I hear other people's stories, and I sit down and I say, I'd love to write that story for you. I would love to do that. Now I write short little stories and I put it on Facebook and let people read things like that. I like doing that. I like reflecting back to another time because it seems that in this generation of mine, we do a lot of reflecting back to when, and I see people going back and saying, "Yeah, I wonder if that first boyfriend or girlfriend, I had, I wonder if it would have really worked out." It's nice to hear them say things like that. That I'm not the only one that thinks backwards now that I don't have to work for a living.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, you know, and it's good. And basically, I was surprised on how many people say they like that style of writing.
Yeah.
It isn't a novel. They're just basically short stories in a sequence with the same characters. You're just following my life. Here's what we did. You know, we hop in a car, we jump on the freeway, we go to the beach, and then I explain, what we do. You take your shoes off, you run across the parking lot, you run up the sand dune, you slide down the sand dune, just things like that. And they seem to sit there and they see that in their own mind, saying, I did that.
Yeah.
That boy that I dated back then, that girl I was dating, she always wanted to go to the beach and we'd hold our hands and walk along the shore and play tag with the waves coming in and out. And they said, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
So they're kind of glad that they got a book out there that says, I did that,
Yeah.
and they they enjoy it. I enjoy writing it. I have no fear of, exposing myself to what I did as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
so
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You could run into that young version of you, 18 years old. You could
yeah.
give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you give your younger self?
Well, first I get rid of that insane jealousy I had as a teenager.
Yeah.
That's what caused all the problems.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to control my insecurities with her, and that's what the riff was all about, and everything. I'd learn, I didn't learn from those that around me that didn't have that issue. I don't know why I had it. I think it's hereditary because I heard backstories of my grandfather and his jealousy rates and fits. So maybe that's where it came from. And It just crept up on me. That was it. But I tell them, you know, you got to believe in that person you're with. If they tell you something, you believe it, until you can see otherwise. But, don't take it and fester it in your own mind that
Yeah.
it's something that it isn't. And that's what I did. And that's what ruined a lot of the relationships throughout my life for a long time. I shouldn't say the entire life, but a good part of my younger years was, not trusting the other person, oh, you can't go out tonight. Why? Things like that,
Yes.
stupid things,
Yeah.
you know, and I didn't have any other activities to turn to. So you need something to turn to, if your plans go afoul, you need something to turn to. Okay, take up bowling, whatever you do. Eventually I got into racquetball and handball and things like that. And that was my, well, you can't get a date tonight. Call Joe down the street here and let's go play racquetball and let's go play some golf.
Yeah.
Nighttime golf. I got to live in Arizona, so you get to do a lot of things in Arizona when the daylight is long.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
So, so yeah, that's basically, I look at my nephews and nieces and what they go through with their love lives, and I do step over the bounds and I tell them, just don't give up.
Yeah.
It might have not worked with this person, but there's somebody out there for you,
Yeah.
and if you're looking for them, you're not going to find them. They're going to find you.
Yeah.
So,
That's for sure.
yeah,
So of everything that you've done, accomplished, and evolved into at this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
geez, there's so many things. Um, I'm just a pro. Just to get to this age that I'm at right now, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But I lived a good life. There isn't anything I'm not proud of. I can honestly say, I didn't do anything that would cause me to be embarrassed or ashamed about in any of my decades that I went through. Um, they weren't all good decades, maybe, but that was job related usually. But yeah, it's it's been a good life for me. It
Yeah.
really has. So I was able to marry, and we never had children, but we had a good life. We traveled. She was a flight attendant, so we did a lot of traveling, and
Yeah.
she, I was in aircraft maintenance with the United States Air Force, and she was working for the airlines, and weekends come, weekends play, so off we go somewhere. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of marrying somebody in the airlines.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
What
was
was
fun.
what was one of the most unexpectedly magical, beautiful places you went to?
Uh, well, growing up was the beach was the for me was the beach and the amusement parks that we had right there at the beach. So that was my growing up year. Afterwards, eh, towards my 30s and 40s, we did a lot of traveling. Um, we did a lot of Pacific traveling. We went to Tahiti and places like that,
Yeah.
which was nice.
Yeah.
Um, I even wanted to go back to Vietnam to see how much it changed since I was there,
Yeah.
but we didn't do that. But Australia, Tahiti, Japan, Korea, things like that. It was all fun.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I, it, really, there's not much difference between what we have here and what everybody else has. Everybody does the same thing. It's just in a different place.
Yeah.
The language is different. The countryside is about the same. You can look at it and say, geez, that looks like Colorado over there, and things like that. So, you know, we have everything here in the United States that I've seen all over. Even when I went to Germany for work,
Yeah.
did some work over there, you know, uh, it just reminded me, you're right back home again, So, the only thing different is they speak a different language,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
So at the end of the day, Robert, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, everyone that reads your books, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm just a normal 74-year-old man writing about my past. I hear my classmates think I'm famous now because I have books being published and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden I went from that lonely little guy they picked on to, wow, look where you are,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. But I don't think I'm famous, and I love to stop and talk to people, and they'll tell you that I am a talker. Um, I love to stop and talk to anybody that's, you know, there. I mean, I see a guy with a cap on that says Vietnam, I'm there. I'm talking to him, whatever. And anybody that's willing to stop and talk to me. So I don't see myself, just that. I'm just your average Bob, and I'm just doing what I want to do until the time expires.
I dig it. So if anyone wants to pick up your books, reach out to you, any other good business, where do they go?
Well, they can get the books just about at any major bookstore. They can go online to Amazon. They'll see all the books there as well. It's uh, I have a website they can go to as well, which is just Robert A. Crothers, all one word, and they can see the books there, and they can let me know if they need them or want them, and we can get it to them. So,
Right on.
yeah.
Perfect. Robert, this has been wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. It's a great
Thank
one,
you.
man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time too, Joe.
Yes,
Take
sir.
care.